All right, good evening and welcome everybody. Thank you for tuning in to our admitted student web chat here. My name is Dave Nafee. I'm the Assistant Director of Admissions here at Rowan University. We have a great night planned for you. Just to kind of break down the schedule. Tonight from 5 to 6, the current session, we're going to be hearing from student activities as well as residential life and university housing. From 6 to 7 p.m., we have a speaker from the admissions office, as well as financial aid. And then from 7 to 8 p.m., we're going to have a student panel consisting of current students at Rowan. So if you have any questions about what it's like to be a student at Rowan or anything you want to ask them, it would be a great opportunity for you. In addition to this admitted student reception, we also have a bunch of on-campus receptions as well. If you haven't already received an invitation in the mail to attend one, you will receive one shortly. So I highly recommend that you come to campus and check that out. There's a bunch of good information for you. So without further ado, let me get started. Again, congratulations, and we hope to welcome you as the class of 2018. To my left here, I guess it's to your right, I have the Assistant Director of Student Activities, Konstantin Alexakos. And over here we have Travis Douglas, who's the Director of Residential Learning and University Housing. And we're going to start off with Konstantin Alexakos. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dave. Like Dave said, my name is Konstantin Alexakos. I am the Assistant Director for Student Activities here at Rowan. Thank you for tuning in today. Let's go ahead and get started right with a video to show you what we're doing in the Office of Student Activities.
Return to the back, get what it is, what it does, what it is, what it isn't. Looking for a better way to get up out of bed instead of getting on the internet and checking a new hit. Get up, first shot, struck walking, a little bit of humble, a little bit of cautious, somewhere between like Rocky and Cosby's for the game. Nope, nope, y'all can't copy that. Glad, moonwalking in this here is a party. My posse's been on Broadway, and we did it all way. Chrome music, I shake my skin and put my bones into everything I record to it. And yeah, I'm on that stage light, going to shine on down. Got that Bob Barker suit game and Plinko in my style. Money, stay on my craft and stick around for those pounds, but I do that.
Welcome to Rowan from Craig Robinson. Let's get some Wawa.
Hello, my name is Aziz Ansari.
Yo, what's up? This is Saban with Rome. We're real big fish.
Hi! Hey, it's Bob Saget here.
Hello. Yes, hello. I'm Dan Cook. I'm a comedian.
This is Eric Griffin Montez from Workaholics.
Hey guys, it's me, Deb.
Hi, how are you? We're 21 Pilots.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, prospective Rowan students. I'm Joel McHale. I didn't go to school here, but I got paid a lot of money to show up and tell jokes on stage. That's why you should come to Rowan University. But do not come if you're allergic to owls.
Come along if you feel like a room without a roof. Come along if you feel like happiness is the truth. Come along if you know what happiness is to you. Come along if you feel like that's what you want to do. Here come bad news, talking this and that. Give me all you got, don't hold it back.
Pushed it down the stairs. I crashed my car into the bridge. I don't care.
Welcome to Rowan After Hours. Rowan After Hours takes place every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night from 9 p.m. to 1 a.m. right here in the Student Center. Raw hosts all kinds of different programs and events, like bands, comedians, hypnotists, coffee houses, novelty nights with inflatables and vacant ticket items, casino nights, and game shows. Some things you can always find at Rowan After Hours are the game room, which features the latest video game systems and arcade-style games. Movies that are just out of theaters every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night, and the Midnight Food Bar, featuring a different popular snack like wings, pizza, ice cream, mac and cheese, something different every single night. And the best part about Rowan After Hours is that it's all free.
It's going down. I'm yelling to my you
So as you can see from the video, we have a lot of pretty cool activities planned for you guys. So what I'm going to do now is talk a little more in depth about some of the other things you can expect when you do come to Rowan. Talk a little bit about SUP, which is our Student University Programmers, as a student-run programming board. Rowan After Hours, which is our late-night weekend programming. Touch on Homecoming for a little bit, SIBS Weekend, Prof Stock, which is our annual spring concert. We're actually in our 6th year of that, and the Freshman Connection Adventure Trip. So SUP, like I mentioned before, is our Student University Programmers, and it is a student-run programming board. Some of the things you can expect from SUP, that's obviously this isn't everything that they do, but the Wednesday night movies, absolutely free, and they're in their student center, ballroom. It's every Wednesday night, and those movies are movies that are currently in the theater or just out of the theater. We do between 12 and 15 off-campus trips per semester. Past trips have included ski trips, Broadway shows in New York, sporting events, midnight movie premieres, amusement parks, and on and on. We do all kinds of events, and those events are from $5 to $45. We take you by charter bus and provide the ticket, and it's very reasonable, $5 to $45 per trip. Also, those trips are limited to about 45 students, so I recommend getting there early and getting those tickets. We also do our Winter Ball, which is our annual semiformal dinner and dance. That takes place every spring in February. And Bikes and Boards. We do encourage you to bring your bicycles on campus. This is a bicycle-friendly campus. Being a freshman, you're not allowed to have a car. So what we do in the Office of Student Activities, we make sure you get your bikes tuned up. We provide that service once a semester, and it's very popular. And also your skateboards, longboards, they'll do some tune-ups and care for your boards as well. So that's SUP. And then Rowan After Hours. So Rowan After Hours takes place every Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night from 9 to 1 in the Student Center. What can I expect from a Rowan After Hours? Well, we do a Friday night shuttle to Philly. Once again, that's limited, but the shuttle leaves at 7 and returns to campus at 10 or midnight. So you have two options. One option to leave at 7, and 2 times you can come back between 10 and midnight. We do a midnight food bar every Thursday through Saturday. What can you expect from a midnight food bar? Either chicken wings, pizza, ice cream. You think of the food, we probably serve it one night at Ra, and that's absolutely free as well. Some of the other things, comedians, bands, hypnotists, casino nights, game room, inflatables, nightly movies, make it, take it type items, game shows, tons of prizes, and so much more. Now we say everything's free, but the reality is you do pay. As a student, you pay a $2.35 per credit hour that goes directly to Rowan After Hours. So my recommendation to you, once you come to Rowan, make sure you take advantage of the Rowan After Hours program. And then some of our other featured events that I'm going to talk about is Roglow. Roglow is our paint party. This will be our 3rd year of doing Roglow. It's been very successful. Last year we sold out in 1 day, sold 1,500 tickets the first day of classes. So Roglow is kind of very similar to a Dayglow or a Life in Color type party that we do right off campus. We shuttle you by bus, and we have a huge tent set up. It's an awesome event, and actually in the video that I just showed, that was part of Roglow, the beginning of that. Prof Stock is our major spring concert, which takes place every fall. Actually, it's 2 days from now. Our Prof Stock is going to be this Saturday. And some of the past artists we've had, Third Eye Blind, Kesha, Ludacris, LMFAO, All American Rejects, Sublime with Rome, B.O.B., Dev. And this year we have DJ Ravi Drums, 303, and Lupe Fiasco. Those tickets are only $10 for students. It's only for Rowan students, and they're very reasonably priced. And then we have Little Sibs Weekend. Bring your younger sib to campus for a great weekend of fun. It doesn't have to be your sib, it can be your cousin, niece, nephew. We have all kinds of events planned, and all you have to do is register your sib to come for the weekend. Then Homecoming, which is our annual tradition-filled week. We do activities such as lip sync, a parade, pushcart competition, a banner competition, and of course we end it with a football game and tailgating on that Saturday of Homecoming. Some other events, Field Day. I put just like middle school, but much cooler. It's really cool to get together with a whole bunch of your friends. It's 15 people per team. The cost is $20. Everybody gets a t-shirt, and we encourage you to come out there, grill out, and we have all kinds of field day activities planned for you. It's a very competitive day, and it's a great time. And then Freshman Connection. You saw that at the end of the presentation. The Freshman Connection Adventure Trip. There are actually 3 tracks of Freshman Connection. You have the Connect Through Service, the Connect Through Leadership, and then my office, the Office of Student Activities, runs the Connect Through Adventure. And basically what that is, you get to move in August 24th. You actually get to move into your room, set up your room, and then then we take you by charter bus to West Virginia. You're staying at Ace Resorts, deluxe log cabins. Now these cabins have running water, hot tubs, air conditioning, so you're not roughing it at all. You're going to be whitewater rafting, category 3 to 5, rapids, and zip lining through the mountains of West Virginia. We have lake activities, campfires, the whole nine. It's a really wonderful experience. The thing about this, though, is limited to the first 40 students who sign up, 40 freshmen who sign up. Also, the really cool thing about this Freshman Connection Adventure experience is we take leaders from the trip before. So the year before, the freshmen who went through the program actually can sign up to become a leader, and those students now become our leaders for this year. It's really nice to have them as leaders, because you as an incoming freshman can ask them about their freshman year and their experiences, what it takes to be successful as a student. And then we also have a couple upperclassmen leaders as well, so you can talk about what to expect your sophomore and through your senior year, so you can be successful while you're here at Rowan. That cost of that trip is $475, and it will sell out, first come, first serve, and the registration begins June 1st. All right, now that's just a sample of what we do for the office, what we do in the office. We do so much more. I'm going to hold this calendar up. We put a calendar of events out every semester, so twice a year you'll get one of these calendar events. Let me put it over here. Here we go. Okay, and it has every single thing we do in the Office of Student Activities. Now, this calendar can also be downloaded from our website, right here. Every student's going to have a Gmail. You can also link up to it through Gmail and have it put on your calendar automatically and set up reminders of when the events are if you want to do that. Or you can hook it up through your iPhone as well. So there's a couple different ways of getting information. I also recommend that you check us out on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever social media you use. Make sure you follow us or like us. It is your responsibility as a student to make sure that you're getting the information. We advertise with flyers and banners, and we send you emails, but ultimately you need to be informed, and we put the information on our website. I would recommend to make sure you follow us and check us out. And lastly, here is my information. Please feel free to write it down. Give me a call. You know, we're here for you. Make sure we're providing you with the best out-of-classroom experience. So feel free to take my email. If there's a question you might have after this presentation that you might think of later on, please feel free to email me or call me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kaz. We understand here at Rowan that college is not only about the studying, it's also about the full experience, and Student Activities does a wonderful job making sure that students get involved with the campus, they have a good time while they're here, and they're safe, most importantly. If you have questions about Student Activities, make sure that you're typing them in. I see that we're getting a few questions right now, which we'll answer at the end of the presentation. And if you can think of anything that you want to ask Kaz about Student Activities, please feel free to type them in, and we'll get them answered for you. We also, in addition to Student Activities, thought it was important to get you information about residential learning and university housing. We know that a lot of families have questions about this area before they decide, whether or not they want to deposit and come to Rowan. So, as I introduced him before, we have the Director of Residential Learning University Housing, Travis Douglas, and I'll turn it over to him.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. My name is Travis Douglas. I'm the Director of Residential Learning and University Housing. So there's a few things that I think are always helpful to share about the experience of living on campus at Rowan University. Most of our freshmen actually do choose to live at the university here on campus versus commute, but we do have some commuters. We actually house about 3,900 residents on the university campus here in Glassboro. Freshmen are typically assigned and live in traditional style residence halls with roommates in either double or triple style rooms. And upperclassmen typically after their freshman year move on to more of apartment style housing, and that's also usually where our incoming transfer students who choose to live on campus are housed as well. There's a lot of advantages to living on campus. Some students that live on campus typically find that there's a greater sense of belonging to the university because they're here, not only when they're in class, but also out of class. They have more opportunity to get involved in activities and become part of programs that are going on in student activities in Constantine's area. It's easier for them to walk over and participate in Rowan After Hours or SUP events, those kinds of things. They're more likely to become involved as leaders of student organizations. It's easier for them to connect to faculty, to go visit them during office hours, participate in tutoring programs, those kinds of things. And we typically find that students who live on campus often even have better GPAs, and they're more likely to actually persist and make it all the way through a 4-year program and graduate in 4 years. I see a question that came up about choosing roommates, and I'll get to that in just a little bit. Rowan University, a couple things that are important about us is that we really value the on-campus experience so much actually that we have a mandatory housing policy that applies to freshmen and sophomore students. So students who are freshmen and sophomores, which is defined as students under 58 credits, are required to live in university housing unless they choose to actually commute from their parents' home. So if they want to live at home, that's certainly an option that they can do, and there's a form on our website that they can fill out to actually let us know that that's what they plan to do. And otherwise, we plan to house them on campus up until their junior year. There's a couple of other exceptions that I've written up there. So a student who may be over 21 or married, or who is maybe not quite at 58 credits, but who has already lived on campus for 4 semesters would be exempt from that policy. Part of the experience on campus here at Rowan too is the opportunity to participate in a residential learning community. These usually involve students that are in a major or some kind of an area where there's a link where they have something in common. And they typically take 2 linked courses in addition to actually being housed together and living with other students that are part of the learning community all on the same floor. And the learning communities that we have seen over the last several years that have been active included biology, our history program, the EOF Scholars Program, radio, TV, film, honors, the green learning community, math, engineering, and computer science. Housing assignments are handled through our office, and students are able to apply for housing once they've actually submitted their deposit to the university, and that's been processed, and they've been issued a Rowan University student ID and identity in our online system. And then you can log in through a self-service at the university. You click in through My Housing, and you'll be able to apply through that site. So one of the things that it's important when you're doing that application is for the student to fill out their own housing application. Sometimes parents are really involved in helping students to navigate the process, to get through the admissions process, completing paperwork, those kinds of things. But when it gets to the question around housing, it's important for the student to actually complete that part of the process. One, because it's a contract, and so since the student is the one who's actually going to be living on campus, they essentially have to do that to click on it, and it's like signing a lease. But also because the questions that they're going to answer in the housing application are used by our office to actually choose where they're going to live and assign them to housing and pick roommates for them in some cases. So it's important that the student is answering those questions themselves. Students are probably more likely to answer questions in a way that help us to choose the best roommates for them versus having a parent do that in this case. Assignments are completed throughout the summer, and then they will go out via email to the student's Rowan University email account at the very beginning part of August. So there was a question about picking roommates, and we do allow students to request specific roommates. So if you have a friend who you know is coming into Rowan University and is going to be a freshman next year living on campus, or if you're coming in as a transfer student and another student is coming in as a transfer student as well, and you would like to live with them, you could certainly request that. You do that through the system online where you also go in to apply for housing, and there's a place in there where you can go in and actually update that and request it. It's important to note that there has to be a mutual request, so we have to see your request, and we also have to see that your friend is also submitting a request to live with you. And once we can see that both students want to live together, we can use that information to try to link you up together. There are some exceptions where, for various reasons, we may not always be able to actually make that match work. They're rare, but in some cases where students are part of different learning communities that, say, for instance, live in different buildings, or maybe one student is an athlete who needs to live in a building that's open during the winter. Some of those kinds of situations may mean that we're not always able to honor roommate matches, but it's certainly a high priority for us, and we do it in almost all cases. One thing that's important to note too about Rowan is that we do have some students live in triple rooms during their freshman year. The university's become more and more popular in recent years, and as enrollment has grown, demand for housing has grown along with it. For the most part, we feel like that's a good problem because we know that students are excited about coming to Rowan. There's a lot of advantages to being here. But one of the things that is kind of a reality for us is that we need to make sure we have enough space to accommodate everyone who needs to be here. So one strategy for that is to house some of our freshmen in triple rooms. A triple room is a room that's been reconfigured with furniture to have 3 beds, 3 desks, 3 desk chairs, 3 dressers, and then they share 2 wardrobes. We assign students to triples first based on volunteering. So if a student says, I'd like to volunteer for that, and they let us know that in their housing application, those are the first students that we place into triples. And then after that, we typically go off of their application date. So, and the application date we're referring to here is the date that they applied for housing, not necessarily their application for admission to the university. There are some incentives that come along with being in a triple. Students are able to earn up to $1,000 off of their housing bill if they actually are living in a triple. The first $500 of that is earned in the first half of the fall semester, and the second portion of that is going to be earned if they stay in a triple throughout the entire semester of their fall semester. We often find that students are in there, and we do D-triple students as space becomes available, and if we have an available space and we invite students to D-triple, they are also allowed to move out of the triple once we have open space in a regular double room. Continuing housing for students after their first year living with us is not guaranteed. We have a pretty good track record of housing large numbers of our upperclassmen who want to live on campus, but it's important to know that it's not a 4-year guarantee. Juniors and seniors who apply to live on campus after the freshman and sophomore mandatory housing policy expires apply for housing usually in the early part of the spring semester in January and February, and then there is a lottery to determine who will be eligible to move on and live in housing for the following year. In campus housing here, we have digital cable, and that's included with the cost of housing. All of the expenses are included in one bill. The digital cable is brought in over the signal through the cable just like you would see at your house. And one thing to note about it doesn't require a cable box in our system, but you do have to have a newer television that is able to accept a digital signal to be able to work on our network. We also have in our traditional residence halls a policy that it is in place for students to bring in refrigerators. We partner with a company that actually rents to students micro fridges to the students, and one of the things that we'll be doing in this fall is that students who volunteer to be in a triple will receive that micro fridge for free from our office. So there will be no fee if they're actually in a triple or they're volunteering to be a part of the triple. If they're not volunteering or if they're in one of the regular rooms, then that's something that they can request and rent through their website. A couple of things to keep in mind ahead of time that you can plan for if you're planning to come to Rowan, and some of these would apply at any university that you might be going to attend next year, and that is we have some health requirements that apply. It's important for students over the course of the summertime to make sure that they have updated their immunization records and get those records into our health center. In the case of housing in particular, there's a law in New Jersey that requires students who live in university residences to actually have a meningitis vaccination and to submit records that show that. If in a particular student's case they're not able to take the vaccine, maybe for medical reasons or because they have a religious objection, then they're able to exempt out of that requirement by contacting our student health center. A couple of other important policies to know about living on our campus. There are some things that are prohibited in our housing. Those would include things like alcohol if you're in a freshman residence hall where students are typically under the drinking age. Obviously illegal drugs, things that might be dangerous, things like fireworks and some of those kinds of things you may not want to bring to campus. Also pets. Pets are not allowed on campus in housing with the exception of fish. The one area that sometimes comes up for some students that's an exception to that also is service animals. So students that have a disability and have a need for a service animal or sometimes a therapy type pet, if you're qualified under ADA to have that, that's something that would be permitted into university housing. A couple other things to kind of highlight. We have really a zero tolerance policy on campus for any kind of violence, sexual misconduct. So we really try to focus on making sure that we provide a really safe campus environment. And that's something that's really important for us to uphold in our on-campus residences. The same thing applies to illegal drug use and drug violations. So conduct that involves drugs and violence and those kinds of things are going to be addressed and taken very seriously on our campus. The room and board rates are something that some students are always interested to know, just so that people can make sure they're making plans and knowing what sort of budget they need to be prepared for as they look at their financial aid and what they have available in terms of financial resources. So the slide you see here is the rates that apply currently in this year's housing. Typically freshmen who live in a residence hall are in a double, and you see the double rate there, as well as the meal plans that apply for students living in a traditional residence hall. The housing deposit, which is something that you'll pay during the housing application, is going to be applied as a credit directly towards your housing bill. So if you're planning to pay $3,500 for your housing bill, $200 will come off of that after you've paid that housing deposit. So it's not an additional fee. Move-in in 2013 will take place over Labor Day weekend. So we look forward to students planning to be here that weekend, and freshman move-in will take place on Saturday, September 2nd. Move-in for upperclassmen, including upperclassmen who are transfer students, would be on Sunday, September 3rd. We definitely have a lot of activities that happen that weekend. So we look for students to try to plan to move in between 9 and 4 o'clock, and then usually the very evening that they move in, there are things going on that night that we look for students to participate in, and I feel like it's really important for students to be here on that regular move-in day versus coming in a few days later to make sure that they're a part of those activities and they get a sense to kind of acclimate to campus and meet other students and get settled into their housing before classes start. So that's really the highlights of university housing, and if anybody has other questions that they want to post up there, we'd be happy to take any of your questions.
All right. I do see a couple questions up here, so I'll read them off, and then whoever wants to answer them can answer the question. So we had the one question answered: do you get to pick a roommate? The next question I see: hi, if you're a local student, you live in Glassboro hometown, can you partake in all the activities that you describe here?
Yes. Our activities are for students who live on campus and off campus as well. So the answer to that would be yes.
Great. Another question that came in: is it necessary to rent the given refrigerators, or may we bring a small fridge?
So in a residence hall where freshmen are living, it's restricted to the micro fridge that's provided through the university vendor, and their website is mymicrofridge.com. So you can look up information about the unit that they provide there. After the freshman year, when students move out of the residence halls, they can bring in their own mini fridges to the other units on campus. But it is restricted to the micro fridge during the freshman year.
Great. Okay, another question coming in. Can you meet your roommate before you decide to be roommates?
Well, you might be able to do that. So if you are here during orientation and say you meet someone that you would like to live with during orientation, that's one of the places where some students are able to find people that they would like to live with and request roommates, and that might be an option this summer too. Students are also able to sometimes meet roommates online. Sometimes they connect via social media, things like that. We've had all sorts of stories about how roommates have linked up, but ultimately, if you don't choose your own roommate by matching up in the online system, we'll end up using the information that's in your housing application to match you up with someone that we see in our housing application pool based on the answers that you give, and trying to pick someone who we think is as close as possible to a good fit for you.
Great. All right, we'll continue the trend with housing questions. Are you able to request a single room?
You can request a single room. There's a limited number of them available. In the freshman year, at least during the freshman year, there's a limited number available. So you can certainly request them. I just would want to be upfront and honest that probably the odds are fairly low in the freshman year that you would be in a single. Most of our freshmen are housed in double rooms and triple rooms. Not knowing maybe the background for the question, if there is some kind of a disability or something like that that maybe gives reason why you should need to be in a single room, it's important to reach out to us and let us know that ahead of time so that we can work with you to make sure that you document that need if that's something that's important. After the freshman year, a very large percentage of our housing for upperclassmen are in all single bedroom buildings. So the Rowan Boulevard apartments, the Whitney Center apartments, the townhouse complex, where a lot of our upperclassmen live, are apartments that have a style where they're configured around a kitchen and living room, but all the bedrooms that the students live in are single bedrooms for their upperclassmen years.
You ready for another one?
Okay.
Are freshman applicants required to stay in certain residence halls?
All of our residence halls are the traditional style residence halls are freshman halls next year. So those include, if you look for them on a map, Chestnut, Willow, Magnolia, Oak and Laurel, Evergreen, Mullica, and Mimosa and Willow, I believe. So we distinguish them between residence halls and apartments. And apartments would be obviously those buildings that have a full kitchen, and residence halls are units where they don't have cooking facilities there for those students.
Great. The next question I might be able to take, when is orientation? There are several orientation dates that you're going to be able to choose from, and they range from late June into early July. Once you deposit to Rowan, and after April 4th, you can log on and register for the orientation date of your choice. If you stay logged on to this presentation during the 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock hour, I'll actually go a little bit more in depth about orientation, but just know once you deposit, the registration opens for orientation after April 4th, and there's several orientation dates that you can choose from, again ranging from the end of June, and I think there's one in early July. Got one for you, Kaz. Did you say that students are charged for attending Rowan after-hour events?
So yes, actually the money is tied into your bill. So you're charged previously $2.35 per credit hour. Will never exceed over $35.75 a semester. So the most you'll pay as a student per year is about $71 for Rowan After Hours. So now, actually come to a Rowan After Hours event. All you'll need is your Rowan ID, and you show up, and there's no charge night of. So like I said, you're charged previously for that service.
Great. Thank you. Bring up the next question here. If you have asthma, can you get a room with air conditioning?
That's a good question because our residence halls on campus are generally not air conditioned. So if a student has asthma or some other condition that requires air conditioning, it's important to let us know that early on. There are some spaces on campus where we can house students who have that. That's a common request that comes up. There's an office on campus called the Academic Success Center, and under that office is our Disability Resources Center. So you would want to reach out to that office and contact them. They'll have you register, and you can provide the medical documentation you need to show that. And then once that's approved, you have what we call a housing accommodation that says specifically what type of housing you need to be assigned to meet your medical needs.
The next question, to take a tour on one of the listed days on the website, do you need to register? The answer is no. We don't require pre-registration for our campus tours. We give them Monday through Friday, every day of the week at 11 a.m. They start in the Office of Admissions, which is located in Savitz Hall. We ask that you arrive about 15 minutes prior to the tour. On Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, you will get a presentation from an admissions counselor followed by the tour. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 is just the tour. But no, you do not need to register for any campus tours that we offer here. You just show up. All right, another question. Are you automatically put into a learning community if you are in that major, or do you have to request it? And then the second part of that question, could I bring my roommate with a different major into my community?
Well, the answer really is maybe not so clear, but it depends. depends really on which program it is that you're talking about, which major. If you had another question and tell me what majors you're coming into, I may be able to answer it a little more specifically. But some of the learning communities are required by the academic departments, and so they ask that all of their majors from that academic major live together. Others are more voluntary, and the students actually request to be there. And in terms of whether a student from outside that major is able to live there, again, the policies vary depending on which actual major it is that they're talking about, and also what the major is of the other student involved, and the policies related to that major. But for the most part, most of our students are able to request roommates and match up together.
Another question coming in, this is for Kaz about student activities. Can non-Rowan students attend Rowan student activities?
All right, so our, as a student, you're paying a student activities fee. So our events are intended for Rowan students first. Now, for Rowan After Hours, we do have a policy because we understand people have guests come in for the weekend. So the first 30 guests are allowed into a Rowan After Hours with some restrictions as far as what they can do that night. But they can most definitely attend a Rowan After Hours and partake in some of the activities, just not all of them. And then, like for our major concerts, our Prof Stop, for example, those events are intended for students only. Every once in a while, we'll open them up to other colleges. So what I would say is make sure you check us out on the social media, and we'll update our policy as needed, or make sure you check us out on our website as well.
And going along that same theme, we have a question for housing. What is the overnight guest policy for residence halls?
Yeah, students are allowed to have overnight guests. It really is about just having a good conversation with your roommate, making sure that they understand who's visiting, that it's okay with them, that they agree to allow that other person to stay over. But it's limited to 2 nights consecutively without getting permission from the university.
Great. Can I add to that for a second? So there are a couple exceptions to that. For our winter ball, we do allow you to bring a date that might not even attend the college. If you have a boyfriend or girlfriend, significant other that don't attend college, you can bring them to that event. And we did a Valentine's Day dinner as well, so that same rule would apply to that.
Another roommate question coming in. What if I don't get along with my roommate? Is it possible to switch?
Well, maybe. Usually what we try to do is actually work with students, and the RAs are really good at assisting residents with this, to try to kind of mediate those concerns and have good conversations up front about ways to get along and to work things out and make sure that you guys come to some agreements about how to live together and make a roommate relationship that you're settled into to begin with kind of work out. But if it really doesn't work, students are able to request room changes, and we process those based on the availability of space as they come in.
Another question coming in. Is it easy for freshmen to get involved on campus regarding clubs and organizations?
Oh yeah, it's very easy. Really, for a club, all you need to do is show up. I'll give you an example for the student university programmers. We host an open house or a general meeting. It's as simple as just coming to that general meeting. Hopefully you'll feel very welcomed. There's no pressure. You come out. If you like it, great. If not, there's 150 other clubs that you can choose. One of the things I always say is I encourage you to get involved in a couple different clubs to kind of see where you fit in and what you like, and then you can kind of pull back as needed once you get the feel of where you want to be involved. So.
Great. Now I actually have a follow-up question for that. What if there's a club that the student wants to partake in, but it doesn't exist on campus? Can they get that started?
Yes, they can get that started, and that would be through the Student Government Association. Like I just mentioned before, that we have about 150 student clubs on campus, ranging from sports clubs to paintball to gaming club to fitness club, outdoor adventure club. Like I said, there's 150, so the list goes on and on. If you want to start a club, there are some restrictions as far as how you can start a club, but basically what you need is a group of people. I think 4 or 5 people, and it takes about a year to get chartered, but most definitely can start a club. A lot of people do that, and yeah.
Now the next question that came in, do we have an equestrian team?
Yeah, we have an equestrian club. Yes, we do. I think it's probably 3 or 4 years old.
Great. Another question, what should we bring on move-in day?
So when you're moving into university housing, if you're living in a traditional residence hall, I would say you're going to want to bring the basic items that you need for living, sort of linens. Our beds are extra long twin size beds, so they're maybe a little bit different than the bed that you used to have at home. And then really kind of talk with your roommate about some of the items that you may want to share. If you're going to jointly rent a micro fridge, if you might share a television, those kinds of things, to kind of keep space in mind. Most students like to bring these days laptops for their own use and variety of different electronics and those kinds of things that they enjoy to use. Clothes, it's a good idea to try to think about the season that you're going into and bring the items you need for that season, and then take some things home and bring different items later when you take a trip home. So you may not necessarily bring all of your fall, winter, and spring and summer clothes all in one shot. Just because of storage, it may be better to kind of keep the winter clothes at home until it gets a little bit colder later in the year.
Another question coming in: are we allowed to bring our own mattress?
So I would say a typical mattress is not going to fit very well on the type of bed that we use because of the shape and the length of the bed. So that's not something usually that we would allow in. If you had, again, some kind of medical need for a different type of bed, you'd want to let us know what that is, and then we can take a look at that request to see if it qualifies for an exception.
How about, are we allowed to loft or lift our beds?
You are allowed to loft it. What we would ask that you do is have our staff do the lofting for you. We'll have folks that can go in and they can actually use the proper tools to set the bed up at the altitude that you want it to be at, to put things underneath, etc. In terms of lift, if you mean putting it up on some of those what we call bed risers or blocks that elevate the bed, that's something that we don't allow students to do because of the risk of that making the bed unstable and potentially falling over. So, but there are staff available on move-in day. You can put your request in at one of the stations during your move-in process, and then we can send folks around. Usually we're pretty good about getting to you within the first few days of school to reconfigure the bed in the way that you'd like it to be arranged.
Another one coming in: does the university provide students with computer desks and or laptops?
You will have a desk in your room if you're living in university housing. Laptops are not something that are provided to students, but the university does have somewhere on its website some recommended vendors to use and laptop configurations that work well on our system, and you can take a look at that for that on the Rowan homepage.
Also, if you don't have your own laptop or a computer that you're bringing to campus, there are a ton of computer labs and available computers to you. Some of the labs are 24 hours, so if you don't have means or access to a computer of your own, there's computers on campus that you can use. Okay, another question: are students ever allowed to have cars while living on campus?
Yeah, so freshmen are not allowed to bring cars to campus if they're living in university housing. Commuter students who live off campus are allowed to bring cars to campus, and upperclassmen who are after their freshman year, even if they are living on campus, are allowed to buy a parking permit and bring a car to campus.
Next question is about a learning community. Can a business major live in the Clio history community?
Yeah, I believe they could. The Clio program is not one of the ones that I think is a closed program. So if a history major was going to live in the Clio learning community and requested a business major as their roommate, I think that they would be allowed to live together.
Are the dorms close to the libraries?
Some of them are. They're spread into various areas of the campus. The library is very central. It's literally kind of the center of campus, so it's probably one of the most convenient buildings to get to on campus. It's also right next door to our student center, so it's pretty convenient for students that are going to eat to be able to also access the library right next door too.
Sure. And also, if you haven't been on Rowan's campus, which if you're admitted and you applied and all that, I hope that you had a chance to visit at some point. But the way Rowan campus is laid out, every building's within walking distance of each other. You never have to jump in a car and drive to a building. So some dorms might be closer to the library than others, but they're all within walking distance of the library.
Yeah, what I found usually, we're also a pretty flat campus, so you're not climbing mountains or anything.
Yeah.
University I used to work at was really on a hillside. It was a lot of work to climb, but it's easy to get around the Rowan campus, and the longest walk is typically about 10 minutes or less.
Sure. Are there any other questions out there? Okay. Well, if there's no more questions, thank you so much for logging on and listening to us. I hope that we were able to give you some good information. We're going to end this now if there's no more questions, and then start back up right at 6 o'clock. It'll be myself talking about anything related with admissions. I'll be going over placement testing, orientation, how to deposit, the accepted student website, and then we'll also have a representative from financial aid here. So if you have any questions about your financial aid packages or how to fill out the FAFSA, that would be a good opportunity to ask. So we'll end that here and take about a 10-minute break or so, and then right at 6 o'clock we'll start up with the admissions and financial aid portion of the online video admitted student reception. So thank you so much for logging on. Feel free to contact us at any time if you have any questions, and hopefully we'll see you in about 10 minutes or so.